I'd like you to do some imagining with me this morning, if you're open to it. You're between the ages of 18 and 22. You're living away from home for the very first time, under constant scrutiny by peers, friends, and professors. You've been asked to make a plan for the rest of your life, and you're also supposed to be figuring out who you are and what you believe. You must perform at a specific level or you will lose access to resources and networks of support, and you are constantly balancing the demands of living in a very connected world. Smartphones, Facebook, Twitter, or X, as kids tell me it's called now, text messages, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, just to name a few. You're out on your own for the first time, smushing yourself into dorm rooms and small apartments, striving to pass exams, often broke and feeling kind of queasy because you've perhaps existed on cereal and free pizza for the last 3 days. You, my friends, are a college student. And if you happen to be a student at the University of Richmond, then I am one of your chaplains. I find that we often have this idea that college is such an easy, joyful, carefree time. But being a college student is not always easy. There is anxiety and angst, emotional highs and lows, so many expectations and evaluations. And as I stand in front of the new freshman class at the University of Richmond, I begin each year by telling them that I am one of their chaplains and my main job is simply to love them. Before I came to the University of Richmond, I was the chaplain at a small private liberal arts college in Missouri called Westminster College. At Westminster, the chaplaincy was housed in a building called the Center for Faith and Service. The Center for Faith and Service was, during my time and now, under the direction of a new chaplain, housed in an old, sturdy brick home that was renovated as a campus building. Each year in August, as new students poured onto our campus, the chaplaincy staff hung a huge banner up at the Center for Faith and Service that read, "You are welcome here." And we meant it. The Center for Faith and Service works hard to be a home away from home for every student. When I was there, and now with a new chaplain, it has couches and fuzzy blankets. There were copious amounts of snacks. There was a kitchen for cooking and even a fake fireplace that emitted fake flames to make you feel warm and cozy. The welcome mat says hello. There are Tibetan prayer flags on the wall, and a sign above the bookshelf in my office during my time there read, "You belong here." African Student Union, the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and ally student group, the Black Student Union, the Performing Arts Club, the Interfaith Advisory Board, the Literature Club, even the Tabletop Gaming Club hunkered down at the Center for Faith and Service for their meetings. Much like First Congregational, the Center for Faith and Service was and continues to be a place that strives to welcome all students and all people. We strive to love each other. As author of 1 John reminds us this morning in our lectionary, God calls us to be radical, welcoming people. Beloved, let us love one another because love is from God. Let us love one another because love is from God. Let us love one another because love is from God. It's beautiful, isn't it? Isn't it so beautiful, this vision of welcome at the Center for Faith and Service and this joyful extension of God's hospitality here at First Congregational Christian United Church of Christ? Your name is very long, but I do like it. It's so easy, right? So simple to just throw open our doors and welcome all people. Just throw them open and love everyone. Her knock on my office door came tentatively but firm. I was grading papers on a dreary January Missouri day during a spring semester. I felt thankful for the distraction of the knocks, honestly, and so I let her in. Today we'll call this student Jane. Jane was a student I knew well, and she often stopped by to talk. And so as she settled herself into one of the big comfy chairs in my office, I eagerly anticipated what she was going to share. Jane looked a bit nervous, and this was unusual. She took a deep breath, and then in a sudden burst, she said, "Our conservative students don't feel welcome here. Today my roommate asked me why you hate them." Oh. "Hate who?" I responded as I slowly felt my breath leave me and my stomach sank to the floor. "Republicans, and anyone who isn't liberal," Jane answered. "My roommate asked me why her beliefs were excluded at the Center for Faith and Service, and I didn't know what to say, but sometimes I think she's right. I don't think we welcome everyone. We have a Black Lives Matter sign in our window and rainbows are everywhere. People who disagree with those things don't feel welcome. Not being welcomed, people feeling hated, this was not the mission of the Center for Faith and Service, and it's not at the center of my understanding of Christianity." And so immediately as Jane was speaking in that moment, I felt myself shrink, and I started to question so many aspects of my ministry. The banner out front of the Center for Faith and Service says, "You are welcome here." All are welcome here, right? Jane's roommate didn't agree with the Black Lives Matter sign. Her boyfriend didn't think it was okay to be gay. All are welcome here, right? Here at First Congregational Christian, you joyfully welcome all, but what if someone walks through the doors who doesn't support and affirm the GLBTQIA+ community? All are welcome here, right? Perhaps you yourself have been in this space at some point. You are with people you love, maybe extended family at a holiday dinner. This is where it happens for me. And someone says something you fundamentally disagree with, something racist or homophobic or sexist or transphobic, and your faith, your understanding of the divine tells you that it is wrong. But you want to love them. You want to be kind to them. It's your home they're in. You want them to feel welcome, don't you? The author of 1 John this morning, he pleads with us, implores us, love one another, and he reminds us that love is from God. And that should be so easy, right? But as Jane sat looking at me, searching for answers about welcome and faithfulness, inclusion and exclusion in my office that January morning, I found myself wondering just what it means for us to truly love one another, to truly believe that God is love, and God calls us to love one another. So this morning, I'm admitting before you that it's not easy, and actually, it's kind of messy to love one another. It's November 9th, 2016. I don't know if y'all remember this day, but it's the day after the presidential election. And I am shimmying through a second-story window and taking tentative steps out onto a roof. I'm at work. Where else would I be? Where else would you climb through a window and out onto a roof in a dress and heels at 8:15 in the morning? Behind me, several college students make their way through the same open window. Grieving the election results, I had arrived at work early that morning with a heavy heart. And as I pulled into the parking lot at 7:30 a.m., I was surprised by the sight of several students' cars at the Center for Faith and Service at such an early hour. Walking into the center, I spotted a giant piece of butcher paper, 7 feet long and maybe 5 feet tall, and it was spread out on the kitchen floor. There were large bottles of poster paint, and 3 students had stretched themselves out across the banner with paintbrushes. And the banner read, "Hate has no home here." "That's a big banner you've got there," I commented. "Well, it's got to be big," one of the students replied from the floor. "Why?" I said. "Well, how else are you going to see it when we hang it from the roof? Obviously." "Oh," I said. The author of 1 John doesn't just implore us to love. He tells us that when we love our brothers, sisters, and siblings, God's love is made more perfect in us. When we love, we actually make love known in our world. We make God's love known in our world. And thus there I was, standing on the roof of the Center for Faith and Service, posting a giant handmade "Hate Has No Home Here" banner for all of Westminster College to see the morning after Trump was elected president in 2016. Because at the Center for Faith and Service and at First Congregational Christian United Church of Christ, hate has no home here. The church is not a bounded set community. We do not draw lines around who is in and who is out and look to these boundaries to give us shape and identity. There is no fence around the church. We do not hate or exclude, and all are welcome here. Rather, the church, you at First Congregational and those of us back at the Center for Faith and Service, were called to be a centered set community. A community that grounds itself in a core set of beliefs and values, placing them at the center and shaping our living and our faithfulness according to this core as we look and live. So we don't set boundaries, but we know what we believe. Does that make sense? Here in this sanctuary, every time you gather for worship, I hear you say that no matter where people are on life's journey, they are welcome here. Regardless of race, ethnicity, age, sexual and gender identity, economic status, this place strives to welcome all into an intentionally inclusive faith community that centers you and serves as your core. And so when we look toward those centers, when we allow ourselves to be grounded in our core values as communities of faith, we know in our gut, intuitively feel, sense in our heart that hate has no place in the love of God and within the radical welcome of Jesus Christ. We can actually test the claims that others make within these centers as they call us back to who we are and what we believe. And so there Jane sat in my office, my friend Jane, and she said, why does the Center for Faith and Service hate people? And instead of knowing exactly what to say, I told her what I know to be true, which is that all are welcome here at this church, and all were welcome at the Center for Faith and Service at Westminster College. All are welcome here. There are no boundaries or exclusions. But because God calls us to love everyone, we will continue to speak the truth in love, for we are called to love one another. And we will welcome all. But if that welcome makes some people uncomfortable, then they don't have to come. Because God calls us to love one another and to make God's love known in our world. And sometimes that love is messy. Sometimes that love is uncomfortable. But at the Center for Faith and Service and in this congregation, you continue to bravely and powerfully and courageously offer it. And so again, today and every day at First Congregational, at First and at the Center for Faith and Service when I served in Missouri, and at the University of Richmond where I am chaplain now, we proclaim hate has no home here. Black lives matter. LGBTQIA+ lives are significant. And again, today and every day here in this place and in all of the communities of which we are a part, we will strive to love each other because God first loved us and called us to love radically and inclusively and with great welcome. So let those who joyfully choose to come, and in doing so, let us make the love of God known in our world. Amen. And now please receive this benediction. Let us go forth thankful that we have come. Let us go forth renewed in God's abiding love. And let us go forth rejoicing in the good news of Jesus Christ, whose love will never let us go. Amen.